Your son comes home at 1:13 in the morning, wearing the color you spent 20 years trying to forget. He thinks you do not notice because fathers, in his mind, are tired men who complain about bills, fall asleep in chairs, and stop understanding the world after 40. But you notice everything because there was a time in your life when noticing small things was the difference between walking home and being carried. You notice the red thread tied around his wrist, the way his hand stays inside his hoodie pocket, the new stiffness in his shoulders, and the calm on his face that is not calm at all, but a performance he has only recently learned. You're standing in the kitchen with the refrigerator light spilling across the floor, holding a glass of water you forgot to drink. He closes the door softly, too softly, like noise has suddenly become dangerous to him, and he asks why you are awake like this is somehow your crime. You look at him, really look at him, and for 1 second you do not see your son. You see a younger version of yourself coming home with blood on your shoes and pride in your chest, mistaking fear for respect because nobody had taught you the difference yet. He tells you he was with friends, and when you ask which friends, he looks away for half a second. That half second is enough because you know lies by their weight, by the delay before the answer, by the way guilt moves through the body before the mouth catches up. Your son does not know this about you. To him, you are just his father, the quiet man who drives an old car, fixes broken things around the house, avoids arguments with strangers, and lets rude men walk away. Because peace is cheaper than pride. You tell him to take the thread off, and his face changes just enough to hurt you. He says it is just a bracelet, and the words hit harder than they should, because those were almost the exact words you said to your own mother the first time she saw yours. Just a bracelet, just a color, just a few guys from the neighborhood, just protection, just respect. Every step into that life has a harmless name at first, and that is how boys walk in without hearing the door lock behind them. You reach for his wrist, and he pulls away. That is when the house changes, even though nothing in the house actually moves. The sink still drips, the refrigerator still hums, and the clock above the stove still clicks too loudly, but something has shifted between you. Your son has pulled his hand back like you're not inside the circle anymore, like some other group of men has already started teaching him where his loyalty belongs. He tells you not to touch him, and all you hear is your own voice from 20 years ago saying the same thing to your mother. You remember her hand closing around your sleeve, the way you twisted free, the way she looked at you like she could already see the ending while you were still proud of the beginning. You do not yell, because yelling would let him turn this into a normal argument, and this is not normal. This is not about curfew, or attitude, or disrespect. This is about the past crawling through the front door and wearing your son's face. He walks past you and closes his bedroom door, and you let him go, because fear does strange things to parents. It does not always make them loud, and sometimes it makes them careful, because you can feel the bridge cracking, and you are terrified that one wrong step will send him running to people who are already waiting with open arms. Your wife finds you in the kitchen 20 minutes later and asks what happened. You tell her he is wearing red, and she understands only because she knows what your silence has always been hiding. You met your wife after you escaped, after the hospital, after the scar under your ribs, after the night you decided that if you stayed in the gang, you would either die young or live long enough to become someone worse. You never told her everything, but she knew enough to stop asking when certain streets made your hands tighten around the steering wheel. She knew there were names you would not say, corners you would not pass, and old friends you pretended not to remember. She never forced you to turn your pain into a museum for her to walk through. But now the thing you buried has entered your house and started calling itself your son's future. Your son grew up thinking safety was normal, and for a long time, you were proud of that. He did not know the sound of running footsteps behind him, the sick heat of waiting for another man to decide whether you were allowed to live through the night, or the strange loneliness of belonging to people who only loved you while you were useful. You moved away from the old neighborhood, worked jobs nobody envied, paid bills early, and became the kind of man who fixed loose cabinet doors on Sundays. To him, that looked boring, and boring looked weak, because children rarely understand that peace is something someone had to bleed for before they could hand it to them. The first real proof comes 3 days later, when you find a folded paper inside his hoodie pocket while doing laundry. It has an address written on it, and your stomach drops before your mind finishes reading because some places do not leave memory. A building behind the old auto shop, a gray door with no sign, men standing outside like they are waiting for nothing. You have not been there in years, but the address sits in your hand like it was written yesterday. You drive there that night after everyone is asleep, telling yourself you're only looking, which is the kind of lie people tell before doing something they have already decided to do. The old neighborhood looks smaller than you remember, and that almost offends you. When you were young, every block felt like a kingdom. Every corner had borders, and every older boy looked like a future you could borrow. Now it looks like what it always was, a tired place full of scared boys pretending fear is power. There are 3 boys outside the gray door, and one of them is your son. He is 18 now, old enough to think he is grown, but still young enough to mistake attention for loyalty. He leans against the wall, trying to look relaxed, and failing. His shoes are too clean. His laugh comes too fast. Every part of him is begging the older men to believe he belongs. You know that laugh. It is the laugh of someone paying rent for acceptance. You almost step out of the car. Then the gray door opens, and a man comes outside. He is older now, heavier, slower, but you know him before the light reaches his face. His name is Victor, though back then men called him Saint, because men like him enjoy names that make cruelty sound holy. He speaks to your son and places a hand on his shoulder. Your whole body becomes cold. You know what it means when men like Victor make a young man feel chosen. Your son does not see you that night. You drive home with both hands on the wheel and the old version of yourself awake under your skin. It would be easy to walk into that building and remind every man inside why they once lowered their eyes when you entered a room. But easy is what destroyed you the first time. So you keep driving because you have spent 20 years trying to become the kind of man who chooses right, even when easy is calling. The next weeks become a war fought in small rooms. You take his phone and he gets another one. You wait outside his college building and he leaves through another exit. Your wife tries softly. You try carefully. Sometimes you try too loudly and hate yourself before the echo leaves the walls. He's not gone. That is what hurts most. He is still your boy in flashes, still the kid who eats cereal over the sink. Then his phone buzzes, and another face drops over him like a mask. He starts looking at you differently. Not with fear, not even with hatred, with disappointment, which somehow hurts worse than both. He thinks you do not understand respect because you do not chase it. He thinks you do not understand power because you refuse to use it. He thinks you are weak because he has never seen what happens to powerful men after everyone stops clapping. Then one night, he disappears. Not forever at first, just dinner, then midnight, then 2 in the morning with his phone off and your wife calling friends in a voice that gets smaller after every answer. You drive through the city with your jaw locked so tightly it hurts, checking streets you swore you would never enter again. By dawn, you're outside the gray door behind the old auto shop. This time, there are no boys outside. Inside the building, your son finally learns what brotherhood means when it is no longer useful to pretend. He made a mistake, something small in his mind, a missed message, a wrong answer, a moment of panic when older men expected obedience. An hour earlier, they were calling him little brother, telling him he had heart. Now the same men stand around him in the back room, and nobody is smiling. Victor stands in front of him calmly, because dangerous men are calmest when they have already decided how much fear they want. He explains that every family has rules, and every rule has a price. Your son tries to speak, but his voice breaks. The embarrassment hurts almost as much as the fear. He looks around at the boys who laughed with him outside. They're staring at the floor. That is when he understands. Brotherhood was never brotherhood. It was warmth while he was useful. Then someone knocks on the metal door. Not loud. Not dramatic, not desperate, just 2 slow knocks, spaced apart like whoever is outside has no need to hurry. The room changes before the door even opens. Victor's face loses color first. One older man near the wall stops moving. Another steps away from the door, like it has suddenly become dangerous to stand too close. Your son does not understand. He is standing in the middle of the room, trying to keep his fear quiet, but for the first time all night, the fear is no longer pointed at him. The men who surrounded him moments ago are now staring at the door like something impossible has returned. Victor whispers one word under his breath, so quietly your son almost misses it. Dragon. The door opens and you walk in. Not running, not shouting, not carrying anything. Just walking in with your old work jacket, tired boots, gray in your beard, and the same face your son has spent years dismissing as ordinary. But nobody in the room sees an ordinary man. The men near the wall lower their eyes. One of them steps back. Another swallows, so hard your son can hear it. Victor looks at you like he's seeing a ghost that should have stayed buried. You look at your son first, just long enough to make sure he is safe. Then you look at Victor. Your voice is quiet when you tell him to move away from your boy. No one laughs. No one asks who you are. No one tells you that you cannot be here. That silence teaches your son more about you than any story ever could. He learns the truth, not from your mouth, not from an old photograph, but from the way every dangerous man in the room becomes smaller when you step forward. Victor says your old name again, louder this time, because some names are not spoken so much as surrendered. Dragon. Your son stares at you, and everything he thought he knew breaks at once. The quiet father. The man who walked away from arguments. The man who let rude people speak and never answer back. The man who seemed afraid of the world. He realizes you were not avoiding fights because you could not win them. You were avoiding them because you knew exactly what winning used to cost. Victor tries to smile, but it fails halfway. He says he thought you were gone, and you tell him he should have kept thinking that. You step closer, and the men make space without being told. That is your son's second lesson. Power is not always the man shouting orders. Sometimes, power is the man everyone silently moves away from. You stop in front of him, place a hand on his shoulder, and your fingers stay steady, even though something inside you is shaking. He looks up like he is seeing you for the first time, and you hate that it happened here. Victor says your boy made a promise to them, and the room gets colder. You turn slowly, and for a second, the old you rises close enough for everyone to feel it. The name Dragon was not given because you were loud. It was given because when you decided something was over, it was over. Victor remembers that, and your son sees him remember. You tell Victor your son is walking out with you. Victor looks around, searching for courage in faces that suddenly have none to give. The boys by the wall would follow him against strangers, against easy targets, but not against you. Not against the man who once sat at the head of the table. Not against the former boss whose absence became legend. For a moment, it looks like Victor might test it anyway. Then your son says, "Dad," and the word breaks the spell. Not dragon, not boss, not ghost, not legend. Dad. The room hears it too, and discomfort moves across their faces because it is harder to use a young man as a warning when his father is standing beside him. You take your son by the shoulder and guide him toward the door. Nobody stops you. Victor watches you pass, jaw tight, eyes burning with the shame of being afraid in front of his own men. At the doorway, he says this is not over. You pause, look back once, and tell him it ended the moment he reached for your family. Outside, your son walks beside you like his legs are not fully his. He keeps looking at you, then looking away, then looking again. The street is almost empty. Early morning light softens the buildings, and for a while, neither of you speaks. The silence is too full. Your son carries fear, shame, confusion, and the weight of discovering that the man he thought was weak was once the man everyone feared. In the car, he finally asks if it is true. You keep your eyes on the road, because looking at him may make the answer harder. You tell him yes, but not proudly. You tell him you are not just part of the gang. You are the man behind the door, the name people use when they want a room to go quiet. He asks why you never told him. You could say you were protecting him. You could say you were ashamed. Both would be true, but the deeper truth is harder. You did not want him to look at you the way those men looked at you tonight. You did not want him to confuse fear with love, silence with weakness, or danger with respect. So you tell him the truth. You did not want him to know you were powerful. You wanted him to know he was safe. He turns toward the window, and in the glass, you see his reflection change. For the first time in months, he does not look like a soldier, a member, or someone trying to prove he belongs. He looks like your son again, tired, scared, and alive.